Future wife, don't scroll. Because my mom saw one thing about you and started crying so hard she couldn't even talk. Not cute crying. Not emotional movie crying. The real kind. The kind where a strong woman tries to hide it, wipes her face fast, then it happens again anyway. And my mother doesn't cry easily, so when I saw her like that, my chest dropped. I said, Mom, why are you crying? She looked at your photo for 3 seconds, like she could read your whole life through your eyes, and she whispered, she looks like she smiles for everyone and cries where nobody can see. Then she said something that scared me. Don't play with her. Because women like you don't scream when they're hurt. They don't chase, they don't beg, they go quiet, and they leave clean. And by the time you notice, it's already over. That's why my mom won't stop crying. Not because of you. Because she's afraid of what I might do if I don't fix myself before I touch your heart. So listen, if you're still here, this isn't drama. This is a warning and a promise. Future wife, my mom won't stop crying after seeing this. And before you assume it's drama, before you think I'm exaggerating for attention, let me tell you the kind of crying it is. Not loud, not messy, not make a scene crying. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up when someone is trying to hide how much something touched them, but their body doesn't cooperate. The kind where a person keeps wiping their face and saying, I'm fine, while their voice keeps breaking anyway. That kind of crying. My mother is not the type to cry easily. She's seen too much life. She's been strong too long. She's held people together with calm when the world was loud. She doesn't fall apart over small things. So when I saw her like that, eyes wet, hands trembling a little, breathing slower than normal, my first instinct wasn't curiosity. It was fear. Because when someone like my mother cries, it usually means something real just happened. Something that reached a place in her she doesn't let most things reach. And it was you. It was something about you. It started with something simple. A photo. A few words. A small detail most people would scroll past without thinking. I showed her your picture the way you show someone something you care about, but don't want to admit you care about. Half casual. Half careful. Trying not to make it a big moment because I didn't want it to become one, but she made it one without trying. She didn't say pretty. She didn't ask where you're from. She didn't ask your age, your job, your background, none of the things people pretend matter the most. She stared at your face like she was reading something underneath it, like she could feel your life behind your eyes, like your expression carried a story she recognized. Then she looked at me in a way that made me sit straighter. And she said softly, she looks tired. Not tired like sleepy, tired like someone who has carried things alone. That's what my mother saw first, and that alone made my throat tighten, because mothers have a way of seeing what we hide. They don't look at the surface the way the world does. They look at what a person is quietly surviving. I asked her what she meant. She didn't answer quickly. She just kept looking at your photo like she wasn't done feeling what she was feeling. And then she said something that hit me harder than it should have. She looks like she's the type of woman who smiles for everyone and cries where nobody can see. That line cracked something in me. Because I've known women like that. Strong women. Soft women. Women who don't want to be a burden. Women who keep showing up even when their hearts are bruised. Women who hold back tears because they don't trust anyone to hold them back. And my mother was seeing that in you. Then she did something that truly shocked me. She started crying. Just one tear at first, like it slipped out without permission. Then another. Then she looked away like she was embarrassed at herself, like she didn't want me to see her like that. I said, Mom, why are you crying? And she whispered something that made me feel like the room got smaller, because she reminds me of the kind of woman who gets hurt the most, That was it. That was the moment. My mother wasn't crying because of drama. She was crying because she recognized a certain kind of heart. The kind of heart that gives too much. The kind of heart that stays longer than it should. The kind of heart that keeps hoping people will eventually choose them back with the same energy. And future wife, if you really are that kind of woman, then you need to hear what happened next. Because my mother didn't cry and move on. She cried and then she prayed. I don't mean some dramatic religious performance. I mean, she sat there quietly, eyes closed, whispering words under her breath the way people do when they're asking God to protect something fragile. Then she opened her eyes and looked at me again, and her voice got steady. And she said, "Don't play with her. Not don't hurt her. Not be careful." She said, "Don't play with her." Because playing doesn't always look like cheating or lying. Sometimes playing looks like inconsistency. It looks like being hot and cold. It looks like giving someone hope one day and disappearing the next. It looks like making someone feel special but never safe. It looks like keeping someone waiting while you decide if they're worth choosing. My mother knows men like that, and she knows I can become that man sometimes, not because I'm evil, but because I live inside urgency. I live inside intensity. I live inside a world where everything is a problem to solve and feelings are something you manage later. My mother has watched me do that to people unintentionally. So when she saw you, she didn't cry because you hurt her. She cried because she was afraid I would. And that truth made me feel ashamed in a way I don't usually feel. Because it meant she believed you might be rare. And she believed I might not be ready. I asked her, "Why does it bother you so much?" And she said something that changed how I see everything. Because women like her don't scream when they're dying inside. They go quiet. And once they go quiet, it's already over. That sentence is terrifying because it's real. A woman can love you deeply and still leave silently once she realizes she's alone in the relationship. And future wife, if you're listening to this, I need you to know, my mother wasn't crying because she thinks you're weak. She was crying because she thinks you're strong in the dangerous way. The kind of strength that makes people assume you'll be okay no matter what. The kind of strength that makes people take you for granted. The kind of strength that makes you tolerate pain longer than you should. That's why my mother couldn't stop crying. Because she has lived long enough to know what happens to women like that. They become colder, not because they want to, because they have to. They stop believing. They stop trusting. They stop expecting. They stop caring. And when a woman stops caring, she doesn't come back as the same person. My mother knows that. So she looked at me and said something that felt like a command and a plea at the same time. If she's the one, fix yourself before you touch her life. That sentence changed everything because it made me realize something I didn't want to admit. I've spent years trying to fix the world, but I haven't always fixed what I bring into the life of the person beside me. I can be loving, yes, but can I be consistent? I can be intense, yes, but can I be safe? I can promise, yes, but can I show up in the boring everyday way that actually keeps love alive? That's the real test. And my mother's tears forced me to look at that test, honestly. So future wife, I'm telling you this because I want you to understand what my mother saw. She saw a woman with softness that survived pain. She saw someone whose eyes carry history. She saw someone who probably loves in a way that's quiet but deep. And she cried because she doesn't want you to pay the price of loving a man who doesn't know how to slow down. She cried because she knows how many women become collateral damage in the lives of driven men. Not because the men don't care. Because the men think I'm busy is a good enough excuse. My mother doesn't accept that excuse anymore. And neither do I. That's why this message exists. Because my mother's tears weren't just emotion. They were warning. They were wisdom. They were the sound of someone saying, "Please don't ruin a good heart." She kept crying that night, even after she stopped talking. She'd be quiet for a while, then suddenly wipe her face again. I sat there pretending not to notice because I didn't want to embarrass her. But it stayed heavy in the room, the kind of weight you can't fake your way out of. At one point, she said something so soft, I almost missed it. She deserves gentleness. And then she looked at me and added, "So do you, but you don't know how to accept it." That line felt like she reached into my chest and pulled out a truth I've avoided my whole life. I don't always know how to accept gentleness. I know how to accept admiration. I know how to accept loyalty. I know how to accept support for my mission. But gentleness, the kind that asks me to soften, to slow down, to be human without performance, sometimes makes me uncomfortable. Because it's unfamiliar. Because it's vulnerable. Because it doesn't come with rules. And my mother realized something. Maybe you're the kind of woman who could offer that. And maybe I'm the kind of man who might ruin it if I don't learn how to receive it properly. It becomes too late. So yes, she won't stop crying. Not because you did something wrong. Because she feels something real is at stake. Future wife, if you're reading this, I'm asking you something with respect. Please don't lose your softness to survive someone. Please don't become colder just because the world rewards coldness. Please don't confuse silence with strength and suffering with loyalty. If you love deeply, protect that love. Not by giving it to everyone, but by giving it only where it's safe. And if you ever become part of my life, I want my life to be safe for you. Not exciting, not impressive, safe. That's what my mother wants too. That's why she cried. Because she doesn't want you to become another story of a woman who loved a powerful man and lost herself in the process. She wants you to keep your peace. She wants you to keep your smile for yourself, not just for others. She wants you to be held, not drained. And if I'm serious about you, if I'm not playing games, then I have to prove I can do that. Not with words, with patterns, with consistency, with presence, with respect. So let me say the part that matters most. My mom won't stop crying after seeing you because she thinks you might be rare, and she's begging me, without saying it like a beg, to not ruin what's rare, to not take a good heart and treat it like it's indestructible, to not assume you'll stay just because you're strong, to not confuse patience with endlessness, to not wait until you go quiet to realize you mattered. That's what her tears were saying. And I heard them. I don't know what happens next. I don't know what your pace is. I don't know what you're ready for. But I know this. If you ever step closer, I will not treat your heart like a test. I will treat it like something sacred. Because my mother's tears made me see something that success never did. The most valuable thing in the world isn't the mission. It's the person who still believes in gentleness after pain. And if that person is you, then yes. We need to fix this. Not by making you change, by making sure I don't destroy what you are. That's the real fix. That's what my mother was crying for. And that's why I'm saying this now. Before silence, before regret, before.